when I began to have a revelation of who God really is, how He saw me.
Yeah.
When I had a revelation of God's grace,
Yes.
which took years later,
For families and for children who grow up in the church, you have to have a revelation of Jesus for yourself.
For people that may not fully understand what Vision Rescue is and how it impacts people, where did it start?
It hurt my ego, especially as a young man. I was in my 20s. It hurt my ego. This is wrong. I wanted to help that child. I said, God, if you are God, if you are good, if you are love, if you are almighty, which I know you are, why do you let this happen? That's right. God doesn't have to send an angel from heaven to rescue a hungry child or feed a hungry child. This reality exists because we let it happen.
What does the role of the local church look like when it comes to injustice, when it comes to being a part of the answer?
I mean, the purpose of the church is to transform community.
Yeah.
So if we do not have a mission to transform community, we become a club.
That's good.
Because a club only exists for the benefit of its members.
That's good.
Come on.
A church exists for the benefit of its non-members.
Well, hello there. Welcome to Parable Essentials, where we get to speak into the heart and soul of our church. Hope that you are doing well wherever you are right now. We love you. We're grateful for you. And today we are so blessed because we get to hear from a hero of ours all the way from Mumbai, India, incredible pastor, leader, someone who's just changing the world every single day, an incredible father and husband.
Yes.
And son.
Yes.
A business leader, all sorts of things. Biju, Thampy.
Let's go.
Let's give it up. Claps, claps.
Yes, I can hear the crowds roaring. Biju, welcome. How are you?
Thank you, Laura and Peter. So good to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm doing great, thank you.
Yes.
So good to be here with you in the studio to have this conversation.
Yes.
Absolutely. We've always admired you and everything you do. We've known Biju for quite a number of years, and we'll unpack some of that. But Biju is, as Laura said, represents... I think he's just an inspiring person. We just had, at the time of this recording, we just had lunch with Biju, and we were just so impacted and inspired by the stories you were sharing. And Biju, leads Vision Rescue, and just doing an amazing work. You've been there, India, Mumbai. Laura's been there, and like Laura said, entrepreneur, business leader, church leader. It's just so great to have you here in Sydney, Australia, and we're just thankful for everything that you do. Tell us, what's some of your favourite things about Australia, first of all?
Australia, a good steak.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I love a good steak in Australia.
Yeah. Are you a medium rare or?
I'm a medium rare person.
Let's go.
Medium, do it really well. The other thing I love about Australia is coffee.
Yes.
I love a good espresso.
Come on.
Oh.
You're speaking our language right now.
Yes.
Start the day with a double espresso in Sydney is the best way to start life.
So good. Do you find that Sydney people can be kind of coffee snobbish?
Absolutely. Very difficult to please an Australian with a coffee in India.
Yes.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I know why. I understand why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good to have you today on the podcast. We just want to continue to hear your story. He spoke for us on the weekend and was just phenomenal, and I just really sensed church leaning in. One thing you are is definitely an incredible storyteller.
That's right.
And if there's anything I want to get out of today's podcast, I'm sure we'll get all the leadership principles and the culture and everything that this podcast is helpful for. Yeah. But I am always just impacted by the way you tell stories. Is that something you've always had in you in terms of story crafting and telling a story? Is that something that's been in you?
I never knew it was in me. My mother is an amazing storyteller.
Wow.
I must have got it from her.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, I was a very quiet, insecure person. I had a lot of problems with my confidence. I was not at all confident. So forget about storytelling. I didn't tell anything. I was just, to myself, very quiet, very afraid of making decisions, very afraid of being in front of people. So that's who I was. But then when things began to happen in life, when life began to unfold, I looked at life and said, man, there's some incredible things that are happening in life.
Yeah.
Which are in story form. And another thing is I'm a picture person. I see everything in picture or stories. I have to understand things in picture. I'm a very simple person. So even complex things, if I need to understand, I need to compare it to an analogy or a picture or a story. That's how I understand things. So stories register with me. And it is through stories I feel I can teach people or share principles. Even if you look at the life of Jesus, he taught some amazing principles through stories. So I had to learn. I had it in me, but I had to overcome my confidence problems. And I had to learn how to tell stories better. And now I feel like I don't even have to think about it. I enjoy telling stories.
Yes.
I just love those stories.
When did that shift? You said that you grew up, you were quite insecure, quiet. Was that a conscious decision that you made, or was it a process? How and when did that shift?
It's a process. It was a process. My confidence problem was a result of my wrong understanding of God. Because I grew up as a pastor's son. I mean, like you as a pastor's kid. PK.
Yeah, PKs.
PK.
They're
And
problematic, those PKs.
Pardon?
Yes. They can be problematic.
Problematic, I tell you.
That's why I married one.
We have 2 against 1.
Yeah, exactly. I'm outnumbered.
Actually 3.
Yes.
So, growing up as a PK, and I was the eldest son. And in India, in Kerala, where I grew up, quite legalistic. There was a lot of expectation on pastors' kids.
Right.
And especially pastor's eldest kid. It was like God, angel, then pastor's kid. Like you have to perform.
Yeah.
So from the time I was a child, I always felt I was a failure. Because I could never live up to people's expectation of me.
Wow.
Which I thought was God's expectations on me. Because that's how people would tell you, like, remember who you are.
Yeah.
Son of a man of God. God wants you to be like this God. And you're a kid growing up.
Yeah.
You make mistake. You steal eraser from your friend. Whatever. And you make mistakes. And I always grew up with a lot of guilt.
Right.
And sense of condemnation. Always felt not good enough. So that was where my confidence problem started. And I began to act. I began to live a double life because I was under pressure to have everybody to like me.
Wow. Yeah.
And because I love my parents, I honored them, respected them, and I saw their life. They were genuine, real. And we grew up in a small town. Everybody knew my parents by the time I was growing up. So I did not want to bring shame on them. So I wanted to, but I knew who I really was. I was not living up to the expectations, but I would, when I came home, when I was in church, when I was with other people, I would act. Put up the best holy face or, the worship face. We know pastors' kids, we know all the different, we become the best actors after some time, I became a good actor.
Yeah.
But deep inside, I was struggling. The stress, the gap between actuality, where you actually are and where you're supposed to be. The more that increases, that gap is disappointment, stress, anxiety, everything. So that destroyed my confidence. So when I did not have confidence with God, I didn't have confidence with myself. Then I did not have confidence with other people. So that was the cycle. So things began to shift with me when I began to have a revelation of who God really is.
Come on.
How he saw me.
Yeah.
When I had a revelation of God's grace,
Yes.
which took years later, So that's how the shift began to happen. Then I was free to be myself, live from within, not worried about what other people will think about me.
Beautiful.
The pressure of having to make other people like me or accept me was gone. Actually, when that pressure was gone, actually more people began to like me.
Yeah. It's funny, hearing that is extremely relatable. I think as pastors' kids, you carry a burden of responsibility. And I remember for me, for when I was young, it wasn't anything that anyone else put on me, but it was just like, I just want to represent my family well.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I was like, I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to let my parents down. But I think one of the most beautiful things, and I think the testimony for my brothers and I, and why we're still serving Jesus to this day, is we were part of an environment that really allowed us to do the journey and not have it all together and not figure it and make mistakes and allow us that journey, and that was such an incredible blessing that I'm so grateful for. But when you said, I got a revelation of God, I think that's so key.
Yeah.
Because when you have parents who are pastors and, I think your understanding of God can be via them, But for families and for children who grow up in the church, you have to have a revelation of Jesus for yourself.
That's right.
And that's the difference. That's the difference between people who go on to serve the Lord and those who don't, is that you have to have that revelation for yourself. And whenever I hear you speak, Biju, you always preach the gospel.
Yeah.
Right.
You can just tell it's like burning in your heart, it's burning in your spirit. It flows out of you. And I love that because you can tell it's come from like a real pivotal moment of salvation in your own life and in your own journey.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, that's the pivotal thing.
Yes.
Because that's what changed everything.
Yeah.
And if we do not keep reminding ourselves of the greatness of salvation every day, we can get sidetracked by works or other things or expectations or ministry or position or, all those things. Yeah. Those are not important. No. What's one thing about my dad, even until he died, he was so grateful for salvation. Every day in his family prayer, he never graduated from that. And I think we should never graduate because a lot of people, I hear people say, wow, those days when we got saved, it was so joyful. I used to wonder what happened now. Is it something that starts with joy and as the years go by, the joy dwindles down? No, the joy should be increasing.
Yeah.
The joy goes down because you lose track of grace. God's love for you. You get on to works, you get on to performance. That's when the joy goes down.
So true.
Isn't it?
So true.
Yeah.
I love that you grew up, as pastor's kid and, your parents were your pastors. I'm always inspired by the stories you tell of your dad. And one thing I love about you, Biju, something I've noticed is that you have this beautiful revelation of not only the gospel, but the of legacy and generations.
Yeah.
And I look at your life and incredible storyteller, but I love this emphasis you have on legacy. Is there anything that you can tell us about where that came from? Because we just had lunch a moment ago and we talked about your dad, and I was like in tears just listening to stories of your dad and that. And I love what you said, like you're doing what you're doing today because you inherited that legacy, and God works in the generations. But what can you tell us about your dad?
Yeah, my dad grew up in a small village in a state called Kerala, down south, in a backwater village. Kerala is a very beautiful place with a lot of backwater. So when
That's outside of Mumbai?
Yes, down south.
Down south, okay.
Southernmost part of India.
Right.
By the Arabian Sea.
Okay.
So you got the ocean, then you got the backwaters, then you got the rubber plantations, then you got the tea plantation as you go up the hill. So my dad was from a backwater village, from a middle-class farming family. He went to school, but he was a very mischievous child. Even when he was growing up, his mother once said, God, let the next lightning fall on him. That was a kind of mischief that he caused to his family. And when he was in high school, 10th grade, he had an argument with his class teacher, and he slapped his class teacher. And the principal said, bring your father, then you can enter the class. So he was scared of telling his dad. So after a month, he brought a shop owner to whom he owed money. He told the shop owner, he blackmailed him, if you don't come to the school and tell the principal that you're my father, I won't pay you.
Amazing. That's so funny.
Wow. So he came to the school, and the principal knew him. So when did you become his dad? So this shop owner was like, please let him into the class, otherwise he won't pay my money.
Yeah.
So the principal said, if you touch the class teacher's feet and apologize, I'll let you in. My dad said, the class teacher touched my feet, I will come in. And that was the end of his education.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So he was a high school dropout. He was
Yeah.
kicked out of school.
Yeah.
The principal said, get out of this place. You will never prosper in your life. So then he got a job in a rubber plantation out there, and there he heard the gospel. That's why the gospel is so important in our lives, in our family. For him also. This Anglican man used to come and share the gospel with my dad. My dad used to shoo him away. Get out of this place. I don't want to hear your thing. And one day he came and told my dad, you can forget everything that I say, but remember this, if you die tonight, where will you spend eternity? That night my dad couldn't sleep. So 1 o'clock in the morning he woke up. He got up and went to this man's house, woke him up, come out. I want to know the answer. I don't know what will happen to me if I die tonight. So early hours of the morning, this poor man, Anglican evangelist, from in front of his hut, coconut leaf roof hut, no electricity, in a candlelight, he led my dad to the Lord. But his life changed. From that moment, the only thing he could think about is, everybody should know this. I am forgiven. My life is transformed. Jesus saved me. I've received salvation. There is salvation in Jesus. In my nation, there are hundreds of millions of people who never heard the name of Jesus. They should know. Because of their ignorance, they're going after everything. For salvation, they're trying to work hard for salvation. They need to know. So he told everybody, all the workers in the rubber plantation, everybody in his, he shared the gospel. After a few months, he said, I have to tell the whole nation. So he resigned his job and came back to his family. His family thought he was mad. You had a job. You were a high school dropout. Who will give you a job? You resigned your job and you say you're going to preach. What are you saying? He said, no, you don't understand. They kicked him out. He was on the streets. So for the next 10 years, he was on the streets. All he did was, like a madman, he will go tell everybody, Jesus came, he lived, he died, he rose again. There is salvation in Jesus. All you have to, no need of any work, no need of pilgrimage. Believe in Jesus. You will be saved. Never went to Bible college. That was his message. Early morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, he would go to villages, climb up trees, because that gave him a higher elevation.
Beautiful.
And he would preach. So people would wake up in the morning hearing his voice. Some people threw stones, threw cow dung at him, get out of this place.
Wow.
And he never bothered. But I'll tell you one story. So years later, people began to get saved. Churches were planted. He got married to my mom. God began to bless his ministry. And he was invited to preach in one of the villages where he used to go and preach early morning, many years ago, in a public meeting. So he went and spoke, and he shared this story. I used to come to this village 15, 18 years ago. And early morning, 4:35, I've been here several times. Nobody saw me. I never saw anybody. I just preached, and went back. But so good to see so many people following Jesus here. After the meeting, a whole family came to meet him. This lady was crying. And their story was that this husband, this man in the house, he was an alcoholic. Terrible domestic violence happening. He used to get drunk, come and beat up his wife and kids. Living very poor in a hut. All the money used to go to the booze. So one day he came home, big fight, Wife got beaten, kids got beaten. About 1 o'clock at night, he fell asleep. Wife said, this is it. I'm done. I can't live like this anymore. So she put the kids to sleep. About 4:30 in the morning, she took a sari. You know the sari the Indian women wear?
Yes.
It's about 5.5 meters long. So she took a sari, went to the back of the house, climbed a tree, and tied one end of the sari to a tree trunk. The next end, she made a loop, ready to put it into her neck, and she hears a noise, sound from above, from somewhere. God loves you. Jesus came to this world for you. You might be a person who lost all hope in your life. You might even be considering suicide. God has a plan for your life. Give your life to Jesus. So she thought it was an angel from heaven speaking to her.
Yeah.
So she sat on that tree trunk holding this loop of sari in her hand, sat there, gave her life to Jesus, untied the sari, got out, went back into the house with hope, faith, began to pray for her husband. Husband got saved, kids got saved. You know, church got planted there. Until she heard my dad that day, she thought it was an angel.
Wow.
Spoke to her. My dad, he never knew that anybody heard his message.
Yeah.
He just preached from another coconut tree and he got down and went back. There's so many stories like this of, you know, like many people in ministry, we don't see results for a long time, right?
Yeah.
We just called to do what God has called us to do faithfully.
Yeah.
God brings a result. Only eternity will tell.
That's exactly it.
So like that, he started his ministry and then more churches were planted. So when he went to be with Jesus 2022, what he started on the streets preaching on coconut trees had grown to about 4,800 churches and Bible colleges and ministries and different ministries and Vision Rescue, what we do came out of that. You know, so that was, he was an amazing man.
Yes.
And my mom, both of them. You know, they're very simple people. Really simple people. They never, it was their conviction, never had insurance. They never, bought any property. But when they left this world, you know, my dad never had anything to his name. But he left a legacy. That's, that is, so the legacy that he left for us is not money or property. He never left any property for us. No bank investment for us. You know, but hey, I'm sitting here in Sydney, Australia, with Pete and Laura in a studio having a podcast. Son of a high school dropout. Wow. That's legacy.
Yes.
That's favor.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know, I came here staying with a dear friend, beautiful house in Kenthurst. He said, anytime you come here, stay. The moment we walked in, he gave us a key of his beautiful car and said, use it while you are in Sydney. Favor. Yeah. You know, so those are, and more than, those are all material things. Thank God for all of them. But a lot more than that, you know, the favor of God following you. It's the revelation of God that you have. It is the ability to be able to follow Jesus.
Yeah.
Follow God. Your children follow God. You know, you are able to sleep with peace at night. You have a family, marriage. You know, those are intangibles, right? You can't buy that with money.
Yeah.
So many people who've got so much leave. The Bible says the righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That can be money, properties, but not limited to that. You know, what is the point of having all the money in the world but don't have a family?
Yeah.
You know, that is, your parents left their legacy for you. Look at, you're serving God.
Yeah.
You know, you have family, marriage, children, joy, peace, happiness.
Beautiful.
That's a legacy, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the things we do today will have an impact tomorrow. So don't underestimate what's in your hand right now. And I think particularly with our generation and younger, we can get so focused on the future. And that's great, having faith for the future. Yeah. But you can lose sight of what's in front of you today. And our decisions matter right now. Our choices as a church that's just begun and a church that's pioneering. And I love hearing you speak because I can hear a pioneer's heart as well. But everything we're doing today is because we are we're creating a legacy. This is for the generations. This is not just for the here and now, but this is for something to one day where our kids, your kids, your grandchildren, will one day sit in maybe spaces like this and be talking, I'm sitting here because of my granddad, because of my dad. You know, I think God works in the generations, and just hearing your dad's story and then what you're doing today with Vision Rescue is just, it's just so special to hear. So your dad's been your big inspiration for you, obviously, and we could sit here all day and be inspired by stories. Maybe we should sit here, so everyone strap in. But Vision Rescue comes out of that.
Yeah.
Tell us, for people that may not fully understand what Vision Rescue is and how it impacts people, where did it start? What's happening today? And how did that all unfold for you?
So Vision Rescue, in my spirit, I felt started when I was very young, because I was always felt very angry with injustice. In India, you know, as you know, we have the caste system, and I always felt angry when I saw poor people or people of lower caste being treated unfairly or being discriminated. That's not right. They're human beings.
Yeah.
You know, you, a certain caste, you come into the house, you can't sit on the chair, you have to sit on the floor. Why? I mean, my family never did that. My parents always invited everybody, but I would see that. And then even within church, you kind of spiritualized poverty. You know, like it was like you should, and it comes from the Indian thinking of renunciation. The lesser you have, the more holy you are. But something did not agree with me, because there is no dignity in living on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at people who have big houses or good cars and you say, oh, why does he have to have that? Okay, but why don't you look at the person living under the bridge and say, that is wrong?
Yeah.
You know, so that I've always had that struggle within me. So people would say, when I ask the question, shut up, that's how it is. But that's not how it's supposed to be. So I think that's where it kind of started a little bit. Then several incidents happened, but when this was in 1996, one particular incident, I just came back from the UK. I was in Bible college, came back to India. I was in Kerala. I came to Mumbai for some work. And I was sitting in a rickshaw and came to a traffic signal. And a whole bunch of kids ran to my rickshaw asking for food or money. This was common in Mumbai, but not common in Kerala, where I came from. You know, relatively affluent place, Kerala. So I didn't know what to do. I couldn't speak Hindi, I couldn't speak Marathi, I couldn't speak the language there. So one little kid, she was maybe around 6 years old. She was only wearing an underwear, dry skin. I saw fear in her eyes. Saw so much of hopelessness. I didn't know whether she had parents, whatever. She was not asking me for anything. She was just looking right into my eyes. I didn't know what to do. I just took all the cash I had in my front pocket, quite a bit of cash, for her to live probably for a week. I gave it to her. Signal turned green. Rickshaw got moving. Just out of curiosity, I looked back and I saw an older girl, maybe 20, 22 years old, coming and snatching this whole cash from this child and pushing her away. I didn't know what to do, man. I felt so frustrated, so helpless, angry. I didn't know if I should jump out of the rickshaw, go back and help that child. It's a moment, right? Thousands of vehicles moving. So I just kept going. It hurt my ego, especially as a young man. I was in my 20s. It hurt my ego. This is wrong. I wanted to help that child. I was deprived of the opportunity of helping that child. Helpless. I went back to the room. I'd just come back from Bible college, so I thought I'll ask God some questions. I said, God, if you are God, if you are good, if you are love, if you are almighty, which I know you are, why do you let this happen? Why didn't you do something about it? I tried to help that child. No answer. Silence. After some time, I hear a question within me. why do you let this happen? Why do you allow this? Why don't you do something about it? It was like a shocker. I didn't understand at the beginning. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. That's right. God doesn't have to send an angel from heaven to rescue a hungry child or feed a hungry child. This reality exists because we let it happen. I mean, you look at all the crime and poverty and exploitation, everything around you. You blame corrupt politicians, you blame bad systems, you blame human traffickers, begging rackets, drug mafia. Rightly so, all those people are responsible. But I believe more than 50% of the responsibility at least lies with good people who are silent.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we blame the criminals for their crime. But what about silence of the good people? And the funny thing is, the criminals and the human traffickers, all of them put together, they're the minority. But they're active.
Yeah.
They're actively doing bad. The majority of the people are good people, simple, good, nice people, but we are passive.
Yes.
We are not active. So that's what God began to speak to me. But the more I found out, the more I backed off. Because the problem was way beyond me. About 300,000 kids in Mumbai alone.
Yeah.
On the streets. Where do you start? What do you do?
Yeah.
There are begging rackets involved, mafia involved, drug dealers involved. I can't speak the language. I don't have money. So I put it under the carpet. We were based in Goa. We started a training center, like leadership training center for people for church planting. And then I was traveling more, different parts of India for ministries. I would come through Mumbai. Every time I came through Mumbai, I saw these kids come back to me. Why do you let this happen? So meanwhile, I got married. We had our 2 boys. Then came the big shocker. I heard through a friend of our family something that he saw in a newspaper of a 4-year-old, around 4-year-old looking boy on the street. And there was a dog, street dog next to him. And this boy was drinking milk from that dog. And the caption said, this dog is his mother. I felt the Lord asking me, if that was your son, and if you had the resource to stop that from happening, would you do something? I said, I will do everything possible to prevent my children getting anywhere close to anything like that. I felt the Lord say, these are my children. You are my resource. That was it.
Yeah.
So next month, Seku and me went to Mumbai. We started with 6 kids. And to grow to 10, 15, 20, we started as a feeding program. But now we work with about 24,000 people regularly. These are direct beneficiaries, children and their families, government schools. We bring education, nutrition, healthcare, employable skill training, holistic transformation, community transformation. So it's through education we can rescue children from exploitation. So yeah, that's how Vision Rescue started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful.
That's amazing, hey?
I feel a bit speechless.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what do you say from here?
Yeah, it's amazing, and I've had the privilege to be able to come and visit Mumbai, see the work of Vision Rescue with my own eyes, and one thing that I really noticed is that, in my time of being there, is that the need really is overwhelming. But I love that you just started with 6 kids, and it grew from there. And along the journey, obviously it's grown, it's progressed, it's diversified, it's, meeting multiple different needs. What have been some of the challenges? And I know that there's been many, but, maybe one of, a challenge or some opposition or persecution, or do you want to speak a little bit into that? Yeah.
We work in extremely impoverished, crime-centered, illegal slums. These are the most needy people, needy children. So when there is crime happening, there is... so there are mafia, human traffickers, drug dealers, everybody involved who have an eye on these children. So when we educate these children, we are eating into their business. Okay, so there is always got to be people who don't like what you're doing. Because when you educate these children, you are giving them access to information. When they have access to information, they become aware of options.
Right.
When they become aware of options, they will make a better life choice. They break out of the cycle of caste-based discrimination. They break out of the cycle of poverty, exploitation. So corrupt politicians who cannot exploit these children, these people, because they are illiterate, they're not going to like what we're doing. Drug dealers who sell drugs to these children, they're not going to like what we're doing. We used to run a daycare center in a red light district. And, children of commercial sex workers. So during the daytime, when clients came, they would give alcohol and put the kids under the bed.
Wow.
And because it's their business.
Yeah.
So we started a daycare center. And one day, one of our team called and said that 3 kids who are being raped, they found out that these 12, 8, and 10 kids, the 3 girls, and this was being done by a local money lender and his friends who lent money to all the girls in prostitution. So nobody could speak up to them because they all owed money to him, including the mothers of these girls. So we got those kids rescued. All hell broke loose against us.
Yeah.
We had to shut that center down because they would not let us continue in that. So we face disappointments like that.
Yeah.
These 2 boys, we found on the street, just less than 2 kilometers away from the world's most expensive house.
Oh.
Okay. They were literally being eaten by worms, by maggots when we found them. They were teenage boys. They were drug addicts. And when they were open wounds, they're dying. By the time our ambulance came, one of them died. The other boy, we picked him up, we cleaned him up, we took him to hospital. He lived for 3 weeks and he died. So when you face situations like this, so many times I felt, what difference am I making?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? But then when you are in that place, you will meet somebody who hold your hand and say, sir, do you remember me? So, no, you used to come to my slum. You educated me. Now I'm working here. I got my own job. Okay, for his sake, I got to keep going back.
Do you find that that's the thing that keeps you going?
Absolutely.
You remember the stories of the people you have helped? Because I just can't imagine how much that weighs on a person's soul. I think that when you refer to the people who don't do anything about it, it's because I think it's too much for the human heart to handle. It's like our eyes are not meant to be exposed to this. Like it's too much, But I would think that with you leaning into it and not just passing by, but actually like getting down, on people's levels and holding their hands, and I'm sure that weighs on your heart, on your soul, on your team's heart and soul.
Yep.
How do you navigate that?
The thing is, we have to boil down to the one.
Yeah.
Everyone matters.
Yeah.
When God spoke to me first, he said, if it was your son, what do you do?
Yeah.
So for my one son, for my one child, I'll fight the whole world. So every one of those children are important. So, and you see the impact that you can have on one child.
Yeah.
The difference that one child can make. Like the story I told on Sunday.
Yeah.
About that child who we found on the bus station.
Beautiful.
She wants to have her own home, looking after children,
Yeah, beautiful.
So it's people like that. Several people who we rescued now work with us. They staff with Vision Rescue. We see them running businesses, moving forward in life. So they are my heroes. They are my inspiration.
Yeah.
When I look at them, I say, okay, I can see them in this child.
Yes.
I got to keep going back. So you have to... It's a balance, One way, you should not be overwhelmed. But on the other hand side, you have to stay affected.
Yes.
if you are not affected, you can't be effective.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, Jesus was always moved with compassion.
Yes.
I often wonder, I mean, when he was on the way to resurrect Lazarus, in smallest verse in the Bible, but Jesus wept. I mean, why did he cry? He knew what he was going to do. But why did he weep? Because he still was affected by the sorrow of Martha and Mary. So he positioned himself in a way that he was affected by other people's problems. But it didn't stop there. Moved and became a solution. So living in a city like Mumbai, it's so possible to get calloused.
Yeah.
Because you see this all the time. You can
Yes.
get mechanical, even doing social work. So I tell my team all the time, you know, if it doesn't break you,
Yes.
stop what you're doing.
So true.
Just go get affected again.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not structured, it's messy. But hey, the cross was messy.
Yeah.
That's where it all started.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not supposed to be this box structured, prim and proper thing. You know, I believe the essence of Christianity is a messy thing. You know, I think so.
I think it's good for us to hear that even here in Sydney, Australia, having a heart for the lost, having a heart for people who, you know, we want them to be in heaven with us one day, you know, and we have to be burdened, we have to be affected.
Yes.
And so that's very inspiring.
Yeah, I think it speaks so much to like
Yeah.
passion and longevity. And I was just thinking about what you're saying. You got to be infected in terms, or affected. Sorry, don't be infected. That might not be a good thing, but be affected to be effective. And I love that thought because I think you're speaking to a lot of leaders and pastors. You know, I think passion is always kind of associated with a burden, you know, and I think what you're talking about is having a burden. And I always say to someone who's losing their passion for something or losing the why behind the what is, number one, you've got to remember the why behind the what. One of the ways you do that is you've got to stay close to the brokenness.
Yeah.
And I think when we get too far away from that, particularly in our Western society, where we long for comfort, we long for convenience, we long for ease, and everything's getting quicker and faster. Sometimes you got to put yourself in situations that are uncomfortable to remind yourself there is still need, there is still a gap, there is still lost people who need to be reached. And my advice to any leader or any pastor listening, watching in, if you find that, man, how do I stay passionate about youth and young people? How do I stay passionate about people? And, you know, how do I last the journey in long distance? My question would be, when was the last time you were close to the broken? Because that's where you'll hear the voice of God. And I want to pivot here for a second. One thing when I listen to you speak, Biju, you are so in tune with the voice of God. And I love it because Vision Rescue was birthed from you witnessing something, but then you had to wrestle with God. You said, God, like, why? And you waited for a second and then you heard God. And then I hear it in what you're doing today. I hear it at lunch. God spoke to you. God spoke to me. God spoke to me. For those of us that are struggling to hear God's voice, how do you hear God's voice? And how do you distinct what's you and what's God's voice? Because I can hear you clearly speaking and helping people in need because you've got this clarity on, I know it was the Lord that spoke, you know. Can you help us with how do you know when God's speaking to you?
Great question. So the most important thing in our life as a Christian, as a child of God, is the voice of God. And so it becomes clearer as you walk in obedience to God more. Because why would you throw pearls to a pig who doesn't know the value of the pearl? Why would God? So there was a time when I was not hearing the voice of God. I said, Lord, why are you not talking to me? Suddenly I heard. Said, I have told you so many things which you have not done. Why should I talk to you? So it's like the radio waves are here. Okay? But you can't hear it. Even if you have a device, you will only hear the news. If you want to hear the news, you need to tune into that channel.
Wow.
So God is always speaking. Luke chapter 4, Jesus said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that constantly proceeds from the mouth of God. So that means God is constantly speaking.
Yeah.
But the reason why we are not constantly hearing is because we zone out of his voice, not because of the lack of him speaking, but we desensitize or zone out through disobedience.
Wow.
Okay, so now, how do you hear the voice of God? I believe when you start obeying the written word, you tune yourself to hear the spoken word. And the more you walk in obedience to the spoken word, the more clearer the spoken word will be to you. So when people say, how do I start hearing the voice of God? Okay, a lot of things already written in the Bible. Okay. People say, when God tells me I will go preach the gospel, God has already told you to go and preach the gospel.
That's right.
So keep going until he tells you not to go.
That's great. That's
right?
good.
So many things are already clear.
Yes.
Why do you wait for a voice from heaven
Yeah.
when you already have so many? So you start doing this
Yes.
in front of you.
Yeah.
Preach.
Then you will begin to hear the voice of God. And you will know it because you know the voice of God from the word. It sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's in line with, it might not be the same words, but it's in line with
Yes.
the written word,
Yeah.
the spoken word. And the more you, whenever God speaks to me something and I do not obey for some time, then I stop hearing. I have to repent, come back, and go back to where I missed out. That point, start all over again, start obeying. And then you hear more. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's something I appreciate in you because, you know, knowing you for all these years, but also seeing what you're involved in with businesses and, you know, you're always strategic. You're thinking about things. For someone so strategic and so innovative, I hear someone so prophetic as well. And I think for business leaders that may be listening in, like, how do you walk that fine line of going, okay, business strategy, you know, making good decisions for business models and yada, yada, yada. But then hearing the voice of God. Like, I love that balance that you walk because, I hear strategy, I hear systems, I hear innovation, but I hear you go, unless the Lord speaks, you know. I love that about you and it's something that I really appreciate in you. I mean, even just the lunch we just had, it's just like, I was so inspired. I don't know if you guys noticed. I had to grab a napkin because I was just like in tears because you were just imparting into our life by what God was speaking to you about. And I was just so impacted. And you were talking about, you know, legacy and you're talking about, you know, inheritance. And I just felt like it just spoke to where we were at, you know. And I just think, I'm saying a whole lot to say I'm inspired by you. So sorry. That's Laura's giving the eyes going, where are you going with this?
No, it's true.
It is so true. Where do you think the role is, what's the role of the local church when it comes to the needs, not just of Vision Rescue, but just when it comes to the needs that, look, we've just planted a church and we want to make a difference. We don't want to just make a difference within the four walls of church. We want to be a church that makes a difference in our city, in our nation, and
we want those long arms, long hands.
we want those long arms and those long hands that you beautifully speak about. But what does the role of the local church look like when it comes to injustice, when it comes to being a part of the answer? Can you give us some practical tips, particularly for people who are pioneering something? And if I'm honest with you, Biju, I've looked at the need here in Sydney, Australia. I've looked at the need worldwide, and it's like, man, it's overwhelming. I don't know where to begin. Similar to probably where you began with Vision Rescue. But what would you say to someone who's a pastor, but also speak to the role of the local church when it comes to injustice and making a difference?
Absolutely. I mean, the purpose of the church is to transform community. So if we do not have a mission to transform community, we become a club.
That's good.
Because a club only exists for the benefit of its members.
That's good.
Come on.
A church exists for the benefit of its non-members, or people outside.
Good.
You know, so when Jesus fed the thousands, he never asked them what religion you come from. What do you believe? Do you believe in me? Then I'll feed you. No. Unconditional love.
Beautiful.
When somebody was hungry, he fed them.
Yes.
Somebody was thirsty, he gave them water. Somebody was sick, he healed them.
Yeah.
You know, no questions asked.
Yeah.
And I believe that is what the church should be doing. Sunday is a charging station.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We come and we come together, celebrate, recharge, Monday to Saturday. I love what you said, church.
Church begins when the service ends.
Church begins when the service ends.
Yeah.
That's so profound.
Yes.
And I believe only then the church is being church.
Yes.
Beautiful.
If the church is not doing that, we are a club. We are not church anymore. So even when Jesus, in the whole ministry of Jesus, he used the word church only 3 times, right? One is when he said, I will build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Matthew 16:18. Second, 2 times was in Matthew 18:15 to 17, where he said, if your brother sins against you, talk to him. If he doesn't listen, take 2 people, talk to him, 2 or 3 people. If he still doesn't listen, take him to the church. Second time. If he still doesn't listen to the church, third time, kick him out or something,
Sure.
along that line. So that is the only 3 times he used the word church, but he used the word kingdom about 106 times or more.
Right.
So, hey, I was like, wait a minute. So where does the church and the kingdom connect? So is church not important? Of course the church is important.
Yes.
So when Jesus used the word church, the New Testament church wasn't born. But the word church was there. That's why he used the word. So what did it mean? So interpret the Bible from the Bible. According to Matthew 18:15 to 17, church was a council, a group of people who made decisions for the betterment of the community. Okay, even when Jesus was here, that's what he did. He brought heaven's solutions for earth's problems. He made decisions. He made heaven's decisions. So when Jesus said, I will build my church, he said, what did he mean? I believe this is what he meant. I will build my group of people, my council, who will make the kind of decisions that I made that will bring heaven on earth. So I believe, coming back to church and community, I believe it's a role of the church to bring heaven on earth.
Amen.
Heaven into your community, heaven in Sydney, in Parramatta, in Castle Hill, wherever you are,
Come
in Mumbai. Because people around us, they are living in hell.
Yeah.
So they don't need to live in hell when we are alive, when we got heaven in us.
Yeah.
We need to take it to them.
Yes.
And I believe that is the role of the church.
Beautiful.
Come on.
And do you think sometimes we just overcomplicate it?
Yeah.
We just make it too big in our heads, and it's like, it's right there. Even when, you're talking about your dad, and it's like, he didn't mean to, pioneer thousands of churches. He just was passionate about preaching the gospel, that he was just faithful with doing that every day. You just I don't know if you meant to start an organization that's, reaching tens of thousands of people. You just fed the hungry in front of you. And I think that's a word for me. That's a word for us. It's like, we don't need to be overwhelmed and be overly strategic and clever. Just meet the need that's right there in front of us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how we start,
Yeah.
That's how we keep going. And I believe we need to always be focused on the cause. See, the entity happens or comes because you focus on the cause. So you focus on the cause and do your best, and then to do that well, you need a structure.
Yeah.
But when you have a structure and systems and everything, it becomes all about, it can become all about keeping that intact and growing. And it's like a bus. You need a bus to go somewhere. The bus is a vehicle to go somewhere, but you need a nice bus, you need air conditioning, you need seats. But you can't just focus on the seat and the air conditioning and the music and everything and forget where you're going.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
So that is a danger that can happen to even a business, any business or a company or church. There is a purpose. You need to focus on the cause, the purpose. Why did we start this? Where are we going? That is the most important thing. It's important that we have a good bus. But the most important thing is where we are going.
Yes. Good.
Isn't it?
Wow.
What do you see for the next generation?
Full of possibilities.
Yeah.
Full of possibilities. I mean, we are living in such incredible times where with technology, with AI, with so much in our hands, we are sitting in this room and having a conversation. We just have 3 microphones and a few cameras. We have the ability to take this to thousands or millions of people, to help people. So there's no excuse. This is the best possible time to be alive. But it's very important that, I'll just say one more thing, to be purpose conscious. See, we all have a function in life and a purpose in life. Your function is what you do to live. It could be your job, your career. Purpose is what you live for. So if you don't know what you live for, you can end up living for what you do to live.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's very important to really know what you live for and be very clear. Once you know what you live for, you can use what you do to live to support what you live for.
Wow.
That is when life becomes meaningful.
Yeah.
And for this generation, if your purpose is clear, you got so much of opportunity to enhance the quality of how you live out your purpose. So there's never been a time like this. Yeah.
That's incredible. What a great perspective. You have a real heart and spirit for business leaders, and I mean, even some of the way that you think, it's innovative. And tell us, you were telling us this a little bit on the way here in the car. Tell us a little bit about how you got into business and where did that come from? Because there's probably business leaders listening in right now, and where did that come from, and what has that led to today?
Well, I suppose it was probably in my blood, a little bit. My dad's family, business people there. So even when I was a child, I was always interested in profit. Like when I buy a thing from a shop, I always wondered how much would it have cost him?
Yeah.
He's giving it to me for 10 rupees.
Right.
Okay, what would be his cost? Okay, what are the things that he would be doing to get it, put it in his shop? So I was always curious about those things. That secret, I always wanted to find out that secret. So then I was in 7th grade, 8th grade. I needed some pocket money. So my parents were not going to give me money to watch movies or other things. Yeah. So I had to make money.
Yeah.
So I began to buy and sell railway tickets in black market, movie tickets in black market, all video games, trade on video games as a kid. So that's how I started. So then I was in my 11th and 12th, I began to do other things. But that's all. I was not walking with the Lord that time. All my business at that time was not the right business, but I made money. I knew how to make money. So, but when God called me, when I got saved, when God called me for ministry, the thinking in India is that if you are in ministry, you should not do anything else. So you should not do business, you should not work, you have to believe God, live in faith, which I see that, but there was always something in me that I was not using a gift that God had given me.
Right.
Wow.
So a few years ago, when we moved to Mumbai, me and Saku, we kind of registered a company and said, hey, we are going to look for opportunities. And also the thing is, one of the reasons I started a business is because I wanted to connect with people outside our community. Because when you're a pastor, you can be always with people in church.
Yeah.
And and all your people who are in church are working out in the world. So I wanted to connect with them. So I wanted to know their world, where they are at. So that's how we got back into. Initially, I thought this will distract me from ministry, but not really.
Yeah.
It's more like a hobby.
Yes.
It keeps me thinking. It helps me stay connected with the world, and also incredible opportunities to build God's kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the initiatives you mentioned on the weekend was that one of the things you're focusing on is helping some of the employment in India.
Yeah.
And helping young people who otherwise may be unemployed or whatnot. And so I love that what you're doing has a purpose behind it to, it's not just about the surplus and the profits. It's connecting people, but it's also creating employment for people in India.
Correct.
And it's just really cool to see that. But this is such a cool conversation. I think we could keep going forever. But I love that tonight we are having him a part of our Pillars community.
Yes.
And our Pillars community, for those that don't know, is anyone who really has a conviction and I guess a revelation to see the kingdom of God advance through the vision of Parable Church, and no doubt a bunch of business people will be at that. Biju, as we draw towards a conclusion in this, I don't know, is there any leadership essentials you would say on departing, and is there any wisdom or anything you'd say to anyone listening in that you'd say, you know what, here's my one thing that I'd love to impart?
Yeah, I would just say, live from your heart.
Beautiful.
Yes.
We only have one life to live. And don't worry about what other people think about you, because they will keep changing the way they think.
Yeah.
They'll think something about you today. Tomorrow they might be thinking something else.
Yeah.
So you can't keep changing from there. Live from your heart. Live from your conviction. Live from conviction that you get from the Word. Yeah. And hear the voice of the Holy Spirit.
Good.
Beautiful.
And that is, don't compartmentalize between your church and relationship with God and normal life. Just live one life with God in the center.
Good.
Beautiful.
So that is what I would say, and keep it simple.
Wow. Keep it simple. Amen.
Keep it simple. I like that. I love that. Well, Biju, it's been such an honor to hang out with you, but also just have you on today's podcast. And I'm sure you've helped so many people, but we're grateful for the work you and your family are a part of. And it's an honor for us to stand and support and partner with Vision Rescue.
Yeah.
Something that we have always applauded, and something we've always wanted to continue to be the answer and the hands and feet of Jesus in. And I can't wait to come and be over there with you guys in October.
Yep.
And so it's going to be pretty cool. But we love you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're
Give
inspired.
our love to Seku.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we love
Thank
you.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Laura.
being here today.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to have you guys in Mumbai.
Yes.
The
Let's
city of
go.
dreams.
Come
Curry
on.
in a hurry.
Yes, that's what I'm coming for. Some good curry. Teach me how to eat better with my hands. I already eat with my
Absolutely.
hands, but Laura's like, you could do a little bit better. So
A lot
so
of fun.
good. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining Biju and us on today's podcast. Listen, if this blessed you as much as it blessed us, do us a favor. You can share it, you can like it, you can subscribe. This is a labor of love from us, and I pray that it not only has helped our church and our teams, but maybe you're a fly on the wall from around the world. I pray this has been a blessing to you. Hey, make sure you do everything you can. Check out Vision Rescue. Maybe you want to be a part of the answer in some way. They're doing an incredible work there in just helping so many children, helping them through so many different ways. Check it out, visionrescue.com.au, visionrescue.com.au. It's just doing incredible work, so partner with that. But hey, we'll see you next time for Parable Essentials.